Hi, I'm Larry Micarenda, and welcome to Smithtown Highway Update. With me is Glenn Jorgensen, the Superintendent of Highways from Smithtown. Glenn, glad to have you on the show. So many things to talk about. The Smithtown Highway Department, been in the news a lot lately,
Yes,
a lot of
sir.
things going on. Glenn, one of the things about being Superintendent of Highways, as everybody knows, you have an operating budget to work with. Now, the Smithtown roads, like many of the roads in Suffolk County, have been deteriorating over the years, and you have been a proponent to get funding for these roads, to get these roads done, because there was a quote in the paper by you that said that if you don't spend the $5 now, you're going to spend $50 later.
That's correct.
So, could you tell us now that this CHIPS program and highway improvements are going to be made a little bit more, and tell the public about that?
Well, we got an increase in the CHIPS program. I got an extra $205,000 this year from the state, and I added a few roads down in San Remo. It helps. Our roads are falling apart. They need some work. I went up in front of the town board. I wanted to borrow $5 million one year, and it raises the taxes for about 12 years, $1 a month for each household. And it didn't get passed by the town board.
But now the town board has kind of had like a bit of a role reversal, because they're really seeing how much, especially after the storms, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
We had the snowstorm Nemo plus Sandy, and that could not have been any good for anybody's roads anywhere, including Smithtown. So they had, I think they put in for another grant where they wanted to get you some additional funding for highway for this year.
Well, we're going to bond some money for the industrial park. The industrial park it's one of the biggest industrial parks on the East Coast. It's has the biggest tax base. We needed safe roads for those people. It brings in a lot of income. It's a good place to spend a lot of that money to support our economy, the local economy, where everybody goes out and has lunches, and it just helps the local economy so much.
Yeah, you have the whole Hauppauge Industrial Association
Correct.
in that area, and it really is huge. You have the Department of Labor, Culca Construction, a lot of medical industries and stuff like that in there, and those roads were really hit bad by the storm also.
That's correct. There are 55,000 people that use those roads every day, coming and going in that industrial park. So reconstructing those roads is going to be a good thing. I'm going to do about 3.2 miles of road they're bonding money for. The Suffolk County Sewer District is upgrading their sewers, and they're going to pave the roads curb to curb after they put the sewers in. So at the end of this project, the sewer project is going to take about 3 years, and with the money that they bond for me to do the other 3.2 miles of road, the industrial park will be in good shape, and they're also going to do some street lighting in the industrial park.
Now, also Main Street in Smithtown, is that a state or a county road, or?
Main Street is a state road.
And so the improvements would be made by the state, but all the roads that offshoot off of that, lands
Those are
in
my
your
town
lap.
roads. That's correct. That's correct. I'm going to resurface about 25 or 28 miles of road this year with the money I got from the town board, and I'm looking forward. I actually started already. We're well underway. I'm way ahead of schedule right now.
Which is good.
Yes, absolutely. It's always good. You never know what the weather's going to be like.
This is true,
You know.
which is going to lead me into my next questions. Superstorm Sandy was absolutely incredible. You were out there in the middle of it, working right aside with your crew. Mass flooding, trees down, everything.
That's correct,
You also, I believe, was working with the Parks Department at the time
Yes,
of the
the
storm.
Parks Department helped us out tremendously.
Can you tell the public a little bit of really what really was going on with Highway during that Sandy storm? You guys must have been, what, 5 o'clock in the morning till
Well, we were
5 the next
working,
day?
in the beginning, we were working 16-hour days. We worked 21 days straight. We took off only for Thanksgiving, and then we went back to 12 and 10-hour days as the daylight diminished. Smithtown was in good shape. We're one of the only towns that pick up brush and bags all year long. We have good equipment to do that, so we were ahead of the other towns in that case. We're geared up for brush and bags, and we're geared up for cleanup.
Which brings up the next question. You had gone in front of the Smithtown Town Board and basically said this will go back to Snowstorm Nemo, which absolutely nobody was prepared for 38 inches in one day. The last killer snowstorm we got like that was in 1978, and that was 38 inches over a period of 6 days.
That's correct.
One of the things you had brought up was a decaying vehicle fleet, that a lot of the, some of the equipment was around when you first started with the highway
Almost, not quite, but almost. I had quite a few trucks that are over 20 years old. The trucks really only last 10 or 12 years before they become a maintenance problem. A lot of my trucks broke down, got stuck, and once you fall behind in that area with that truck, it's hard to catch up.
Now, normally, just given normal snowfall amounts, how much snow can the town really get rid of per hour?
Well, that's a good question. The weather forecast said that we were going to have 15 to 18 inches of snow. We got hit with over 30. And in a short amount of time, there were times when my trucks had to pull off the road at night. You couldn't see. We had snow blindness. It's called a whiteout. And I was out there with the guys. And if you lose your vision for just 5 or 8 seconds, it feels like minutes. So many times we just had to pull over and let that squall go by before we started again. It was they didn't predict the ice that we got and the amount of snow and the time of that snowfall.
And it was incredible because, like I said, nobody was really ready for it.
Right.
And when you have to put these older vehicles on the road because you're desperately trying to catch up with the snow, and you have your snow. If the plow is plowing, can plow 2 inches per hour, and you're getting 6, there's going to be a problem.
Well, it's good you asked that because I was out plowing with my guys, and I was in the St. James area, and it was sometime at maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. I plowed a few streets up by the streets and avenues, and I got called away for some emergency for one of my guys, and I went back to those streets an hour or two later. It was like I was never there.
God.
So,
I know it was rough because I had ran into you. There was an event over in Smithtown right after the storm, and you were telling me about, one of the biggest problems was where to put it, because you had all this snow and some of these drifts and these mountains. I think just some of them just recently thawed out. They were so high, they were like 20, 30 feet high. So that was another problem that you had, was that where do you put it? You're plowing it. Where do you put it?
Yeah, once you get that much snow, it's hard. There's nowhere to push it. It goes to the side of the plow and it comes back around. You don't get it up high enough or fast enough. You don't get it on top of the banks. It's a daunting task.
And plus, all your plow people, as well as yourself out there, you have to be mindful of fire hydrants and mailboxes and cars. Even though it's said 100 times, please remove your car from the street. There's always some scragglers in there who, leave it in there. Only this time they were probably buried in there for.
Well, when the state roads on 25A got shut down, 347 was shut down, the expressway was shut down, it was hard to get other people in to help you. They couldn't get to my town to help. So even though we called in some extra help, it took a day for those machines to get there to start opening up some other roads.
Yeah, because they had actual bulldozers from the state and the county, right, that were
That's
coming in to
correct.
try to help out.
Well, the state, I give them a lot of credit. They did send some trucks for me, and
But,
I needed them.
When you're talking having to move snow with a bulldozer, that's a massive amount of snow. I mean, you've been around the yard. I mean, you know how big these highway bulldozers are. They're huge.
I've been plowing snow for 40 years for the town, and this was the worst storm. Like you said, back in the 70s, we had one blizzard backed up by another blizzard, but it took us a few days to accumulate that 30 inches. This 30 inches came down in about 13 or 15 hours.
Yeah, it was incredible, and that's when the town heard your plea and said, Glenn, you might have something about updating these vehicles. It might be a good deal to do. And you've been working with the town board, right, on that, the vehicle acquisition to get some of these vehicles
That's
replaced?
correct. I'm actually, they bonded some money for new vehicles. I'm going to get 10 or 11 new six-wheelers and 2 new 10-wheelers. That we just ordered last week. So it's and then with that, I can get rid of 10 or 12 of my older trucks that are just maintenance problems, And I took another $100,000 out of my maintenance budget to help pay for those trucks. This way, when I get rid of those 10 or 12 maintenance trucks, I could lower that repair line a little bit, which helps.
Yeah, and they'll go out to bid, and then the money will go back into the town and everything, right?
Yeah, I bought the trucks from the county and state bid. That's correct.
Yeah. So now, also one of the things we've been talking about so much hands-on stuff, Glenn. Getting your hands dirty and being out there with the shovels and everything like that. Which we have some pictures that we'll be bringing. It's not all hey, we just to get out there and work
No, there's a lot of office work. You're right. There's more than just me going out and working side by side with my guys. The operating budget for the snow, I take a 3 or 5 year average, and I come up with a number for my snow and my DS money for the winter. I also have to figure in fuel costs that go up, salaries that go up, payouts for my guys who retire, all part of that budget. It's a daunting task. It's hard to do, but then I submit that to the town board, and the town board does their little magic with numbers, and then they give me what they think that I deserve.
And then you also will have the option to go back to them and say, "Hey, look, I need a little bit more." It's like the kid asking the parents for an allowance.
That's
Can I get a raise here so I can get these other things taken care of?
Correct. It's a lot of work. We actually start the budget probably in August or September. In August is when we start putting numbers together for the budget.
And it's hard too, right? Because predicting snowfall amounts, because now you're going to sit back and say, well, if we have something like we had last year, right? I mean,
we were talking about snowfall. When I hear 15 to 18 inches, we get a little worried. But we always handle 15 to 18 inches of snow. But when we get hit with 30, that's something out of the ordinary.
Well, like I said, it just was one storm after another. We got hit with Sandy in October, okay, and that was rough. And we've had Councilman Werheim on the program, and he was telling us about the parks, marinas, and everything like that. The work that had to be done there, and then what happens in February? We get this super snowstorm that we haven't seen the likes of since 1970, 78, and it's.
Let me give you a little history. When I first got elected, I had that snowstorm where I got involved before I was even sworn into office. And then that same year we had record rainfalls where people were pumping their basements. The water table came up. And then since then I've had 3 blizzards, 2 hurricanes, and I might as well throw in the earthquake that they said we had.
Yeah.
Once, So I've had, and I expect locusts this year maybe. They come get me. I'm not sure. But, and my guys, they were up for every task. I'm proud of them. They did a great job. They care. They do well.
And the other thing too with highway is that when you have these roads, you guys are out there cleaning up the sewers, the drains, pumping them out. That's another thing that people don't realize. It's another job that comes with the highway department. Right. So, and then plus having the people out there paving, fixing the potholes.
That's correct.
You boys are busy.
Some things I want to tell the public about the snowstorms is, when we're doing the roads, when you're snow blowing your driveway, don't blow it back into the road. Blow it to the left or right. It only helps us do our job.
And not just that, what happens is the plow will just come by and
And push the
throw it back
out.
on. It's the catch-22 of snow
It's a little
plowing.
battle.
Right.
It's a little battle.
And like you said, it's rough for all the plow people, Smithtown, Brookhaven, Islip, especially when you have to fight cars in the road, mailboxes, fire hydrants. They have to remain open. They can't be plowed in, And some of these roads, Smithtown, I guess, is pretty fortunate. The roads aren't that narrow as they are in some other areas of the other towns in Suffolk, but you still have, that hilly terrain back where we had met, where they were having that conference back there, the cottage or something they call it, and the golf course. Talk about the long and winding road. I was like, that must have been real fun to plow back there.
That's a tough area. That's in San Remo. On the North Shore, we have a lot of hills. If you get to Nesconset and Hauppauge, it's not as hilly as the North Shore. It's tough. Those guys have a lot of work to do. They're pros. They are professionals, and they're good at what they do.
Like I said, I mean, I had a hard problem just driving it when it was a dry day. I can imagine when it was the snow. And then the other thing you have is that it hugs around the water, and then you have the lake effect and the ice and everything else like that. And just one hell of a job. And the other thing you had to do was down trees, because now you had to down trees from Sandy, and then you also had them again
From
in the
the snow.
snowstorm.
That's
So
correct.
you just finished cleanup doing it in November, December, and you're right back out there doing it again.
Out there. And then getting back to picking up our brush, like you brought, people are still bringing brush out from the storm, from their backyards. They're cutting down trees that might be in danger next storm. They learn their lesson. Clean up now. Anything around your house, get it away from. And they're starting to cut down trees still and bringing that brush out. And we're still picking up quite a bit of brush.
Your history. I just have to bring this up because I'd mentioned this to one of the other council people, was that Jim Dowling, is former superintendent of highways. And there's going to be I believe a building is going to be dedicated to him in Smithtown.
We dedicated the highway building to him. The town board adopted that, yes, and we're going to have a ceremony. They're going to make a plaque. I have a good story to tell about Mr. Dowling.
That's what I was going to ask you,
one
because
of
if
the
you were in there for
stories-
37 years and he was in there for 37 years, you had
There's
to be
a few
serving
good
with
stories.
him
One
for
of
a
the
long
stories,
time.
let me tell you, is he used to hand out a questionnaire to his employees, asking them where did they want to be, what were they looking forward to, and I went through the gamut one time. I think I was an AEO, I was an automotive equipment operator. So on my list I wrote down, heavy equipment operator, foreman, general foreman, and at the end I wrote superintendent. And he came to me and says, "You're the only guy that ever put that." And the dream came true. I became that, But
Now you had some other stores that actually working side by side with him, right? As your years went on in the highway department.
yes, I give Mr. Dowling a lot of credit. He was very innovative in his day. He was one of the first guys who used to, with the road, we called it mix and place. And it's like going green before going green was the
popular.
thing to do.
Yeah.
He took the old road, pulver mixed it where it was, and used that, and then we added some emulsion and used that as the base of the road, and then we paved over that. So it saved time and money. Another thing that Mr. Dowling, I give him credit for, we were the first town to ever use leaf bags. The residents used to push the leaves into the gutters. We used to go around with those leaf suckers. They were very maintenance intense, and he came up with the idea of leaf bags, and the residents bagged the leaves. And I remember him saying it was like he hired 100,000 laborers. That he had the residents bag the leaves, and all we had to do was pick it up.
Some of the other aspects of the superintendent highways, we already spoke about the budget. We spoke about your past with Mr. Dowling. We spoke about the storms. Where do you see the future of not just the Smithtown Highway Department, but like all the highway departments, where they'll be going in the future?
Well, there are a few things in Smithtown that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a computer road program that analyzes the road. You do the whole town. You take all the information, the cracks, the deterioration, the alligator cracking, the utility patches, and everything gets a value,
Right.
and you put it into the computer. And then after you do the whole town and get those ratings, then you can do 1/3 of the town every year. So then every 3 years, you have a computerized road. It could tell you how fast the road is deteriorating. If you did the road 3 years ago and you go back and look at it, it tells you how many more cracks involved and what the procedure should be. Should you do some maintenance, or should you just leave it alone and not waste that money and let it just deteriorate till you reconstruct? So that's one of the things that we're trying to put in place now.
So your relationship with the public during the past 4 years, and I have to bring this up because there was a couple of very amusing stories in Newsday about you. One was right after you had gotten elected, a woman had a sidewalk problem that she had complained for years and years about, and it fell on deaf ears. And I think it was your first week in office, and she called you, and you yourself showed up there with the crew and repaired the sidewalk.
That's correct. I do go to almost every complaint. I don't want to call them complaints, let's say concerns. But I go to almost every concern myself, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. People say, I don't get home from work till 6. Mrs. Smith, I'll be at your house at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. And I show up, and she goes, you're the first elected official that ever came to my house. And then sometimes I give them the good news, bad news. The good news is I'm here. The bad news is maybe I can fix it next year. I don't have the money in the budget this year. So, yes.
And another story was that there was a woman who had a sewer grate, and I guess it had cracked or they fell under or something like that. And you showed up there at 7:30 at night with the crew and fixed it, and the woman was absolutely amazed because she had just called it in at 5 o'clock.
She's right. That's because I care. If there's a concern, I take care of it. Actually, my wife looks at me and goes, "I think you're making minimum wage with all the hours you put in."
But again, getting back to some of the things with the highway department. So we spoke about your relationship with the residents, with the town departments, the town officials. Have you ever had to been called on, like maybe the superintendent of highway session that you've had to work with, Brookhaven or Islip on a program or something like that?
All those superintendents, we have meetings. There's about 12 or 13 of us, whether they're commissioners or superintendents. We have monthly meetings. We talk about our concerns. It's funny that we all have the same problems, somewhat familiar with each other's things, and we discuss those things. And sometimes we come up with some good ideas on how to rectify some problems.
There's been talk now that about possibly pooling resources with other towns, like to buy mass amounts of salt or tar or asphalt to get a cheaper price, working with some of the other towns. Do you think that'll be a good idea in the future? You think that'll happen?
It sounds like it'll be a good idea, but we all use different amounts. We all have different mileage of roads. We all have, Brookhaven has probably 6 or 7 yards. I have 2. We've talked about that. That's something that's going to maybe happen in the future, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think it will happen further down the line.
Glenn, one thing I want to mention before we wrap up is that you have received awards, and it's a little different, these type of awards that you got, especially this one from the Chamber of Commerce. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
The one I got from the Smithtown Chamber of Commerce was given to me as the people who never say no. And I was very pleased to get that award. Whenever they call, I take care of their concerns or whatever they have, but I'm going to learn to say no one day. I won't say, I do that because I care, and if something has to be done, I get it done. I'm glad that they recognize me for doing that.
Does it actually say that on the plaque?
Yes, it does. It does. For those who never say no. You know.
Well, that's a great thing to have because working with this small business was one thing that we didn't talk about before. We talked about the community as in the people, but the small business owners they have a lot of problems too because if you can't get them, they can't have access to the business. They can't open up.
That's
they
true.
can't make any money, so they must ring your phone a lot.
And then one of the other things we talked about, snow removal. Smithtown is one of the only towns that during a heavy snowstorm, if I have 6 inches or more, we shut the town down at night and we clean all the snow from the sidewalks and the side streets and we haul it out. And we open it up by 5 in the morning. It's like it never snowed. And those people, those store owners, they just love it.
Yeah, because now people have egress back and
That's
forth.
correct,
From that. And then another thing too, which is really big and goes back to what we started with, is the sidewalks that people have to walk on, to get to these places.
That's correct.
And that's something that you've been working on recently during the past couple of years, is trying to get the sidewalks back to par, and you've been working with the other people in the town about that?
That's going to be a hard task because I have 1,700 sidewalk complaints that
Wow.
I got given to me a year or two ago, and been working on that. And then, of course, with the hurricane, with the storm, with Superstorm Sandy, a lot of uprooted trees, and that ruined a lot of other sidewalks. So I'm focusing on the sidewalks that the trees uprooted because the sidewalks are missing. And the sidewalks where they're just a little bit cant or out of whack, they're going to become second to take care of right now.
My next question would have to be that now we know you have 140 employees, and these guys have been working overtime, 8, 10, 12 hours sometimes.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that you need to bid out, that you have to, get contracts. How does the bidding process work with that,
Well,
with the towns?
I bid out the asphalt and the concrete and a lot of other things. One of the only things I don't bid out is the drainage work. We do all our drainage in-house. And it's the lowest competitor, reasonable, qualified bidder that gets the price, that gets the job. And I'm satisfied with our new contracts that we got out there.
And also quality has to be a big thing. So if
Correct,
you've had somebody who's done really great quality work in the past,
right.
that has to take.
That's where that qualified bidder comes
Okay.
into that equation.
Well, with the highway department and the future of the highway department, like you were saying about having this like electronic map of the roads, I think it's going to be a great idea, and I wish you luck with that. And we'd just like to thank everybody in the town of Smithtown for tuning in for our chat with Highway Superintendent Glenn Jorgensen. If you have any questions or comments for Glenn, you'll see prompts at the end of the program where you can either call in or write into him. So for the Smithtown Government Access Channel, I'm Larry Mike Arinda. I've been with Glenn Jorgensen, the Superintendent of Highways. Wishing you a happy and safe summer, and take care.